This is the Jason Jones Show, powered by Mudhouse Media. Now, here's Jason Jones.
Aloha, everybody, and welcome to the Jason Jones Show. I am your host, Jason Jones, and this is another hashtag Stop the Steal episode. We have a whistleblower coming to us from on location in Wisconsin with an update. And she said she wanted to come on the air. I don't know anything yet. So we're going to learn about this together. By the way, I don't want to do these Stop the Steal updates. There is a lot to talk about right now. Crematoriums being built in Chinese-occupied East Turkestan, growing food insecurity. David Beasley said a Biden shutdown would create the worst year in famine, I believe he said, in recorded history. There is a lot to talk about, but unfortunately, it looks like an election may have been stolen. So I'm going to bring the whistleblower on the air. Aloha, Anonymous.
Hey there, Jason.
So actually, I know who you are. You're my friend. You're a respected person, and you're very involved in politics. You're a lawyer. I'm going to give you the name Thursday. Can I call you Thursday?
Love it.
Okay. If you don't like it, you can pick a new name.
Okay. I may change later on.
Do you know why? You know who Thursday is?
Thursday from the show?
Thursday from The Man Who Was Thursday, G.K. Chesterton. What show are you talking about?
I'm not sure I know which show it is.
I think there was one with Friday, Thursday. Anyway, I digress. All right, we're friends. I have friends that are involved in the recount all across the country, and I'm hearing all kinds of stories, but I'm a skeptic. So this is where I am Thursday. It's either the election, there was systematic fraud, or there wasn't. I'm not interested in, someone's spouse passed away and they sent in her mail-in ballot. I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in some kid from Portland who just moved to Wisconsin 4 days ago and decided to go in and vote. I'm not interested in somebody who mailed in an absentee ballot and forgot and went and voted in person again. Those things shouldn't be happening, but whatever. I'm interested in systematic voter fraud. I'm interested in a conspiracy that is nationwide, which is what Sidney Powell is saying. And you are somebody I respect. You are much less prone to excitement and hyperbole than I am, for sure. So by your profession, you look at things calmly and coolly. Do you believe, from what you are seeing in Wisconsin, that there is a conspiracy of fraud?
I think without a doubt there has been an intent to disenfranchise the Trump voters. I think without a doubt there's been an attempt to over-enfranchise, if that's a term, people who should not be voting in the election in Wisconsin. If I told you that there's a category of absentee voters in Wisconsin that are called indefinitely confined, these are people who are supposed to be disabled, unable to leave their homes, maybe in a nursing home, that sort of thing. They are indefinitely confined, very limited circumstances that allow you to be one of those voters. If I told you that the norm is for there to be maybe 50 to 60,000 in a presidential year who are indefinitely confined, who all of a sudden have swollen to more than 240,000 for this election, that ought to be a little shocking. So there's no way that all of a sudden we had that many more indefinitely confined people. And so that's one of the many areas that we're looking at. And there was a concerted effort by the Wisconsin Election Commission to encourage people to register as indefinitely confined. That was all over the internet. That was on a Facebook post that they had.
Can you repeat that one more time?
There was an effort by the Wisconsin Election Commission to encourage people to register as indefinitely confined.
that
So they
weren't.
put out ads and marketing and Facebook posts encouraging people, hey, this is COVID times, things are a little crazy. Why don't you just register as an indefinitely confined person? Okay. So now all of a sudden, instead of about 60,000, we have about 240,000 people in that category alone.
So, but here's my question. So if there's 260,000 people who voted that were indefinitely confined, it could have been because, there was a concerted effort to make sure these people were able to exercise their right to vote who were indefinitely confined, or maybe the people who are paranoid of, if there's someone who has OCD, normally I could see them not wanting to go vote in this election and then registering as indefinitely confined. So were people being pressured to vote a certain way? Were they just, because I believe there's what's called legal corruption, right? In a way, this ballot harvesting that's allowed, which should stop.
Right.
So is this more of sort of the structural corruption that needs to be changed in our state legislatures?
Well, remember, go ahead.
There was the Veritas video I saw, and I hope it was an isolated incident, where a woman was walked through changing her vote from Trump to Biden. I don't know if you saw that Veritas video. Now that's problematic. Now that's a different story than, people who are well-meaning who want people who are confined or afraid of COVID or maybe at risk, they have asthma or something, and they're afraid to vote, an aggressive campaign to reach out and get their votes.
That would be okay, but there's also still the additional category of absentee.
Okay.
So you still have the option to just be a regular absentee mail-in voter. That's an entirely different subset of people.
What's the
so
difference?
These are people. So these are people who have said, "Oh, I don't want to. I legitimately, okay, maybe I'm in a nursing home, just been placed there, and I can't get out, or I've just been made a ward of the state, or something like that, and I can't leave." So they would be indefinitely confined. The absentee voter can request the application, must request an application, which is a different problem, and then receive a ballot and then vote. Okay, the indefinitely confined folks don't have to do that. It's kind of all inclusive. It's an all inclusive menu. You just want to be indefinitely confined. Say you are. You don't even have to prove it. And so, take the scenario of maybe the BLM folks who came to Kenosha to protest and parked here for a little bit. Those people don't have residences here. The indefinitely confined person doesn't even have to prove that they're indefinitely confined in an institution of some sort. So it's different from the absentee voter.
So explain to me how it's different, though. So is it different in I guess they don't need an ad. I don't understand what the difference is, or what was the need. So what was the purpose of? Does every state have this? Do all states have this indefinitely confined? I guess that's an unfair question. I
don't know. I don't think, for example, I'm in a state that doesn't have that.
Okay.
We have absentees, and that's what that voter would regularly, register as. I'm an absentee person because I can't leave my home, or I can't leave my nursing home, or I can't leave my hospital bed. Okay, you're just an absentee voter. This is a different category with fewer ways to spot the fraud. So, for example, with an absentee application, there should be an application. There should be a witness address, 2 signatures, 2 initials from the clerk that receives it, that sort of thing, and then they're mailed their ballots. Okay? The indefinitely confined person doesn't have to go through all that.
That's unbelievable. When did Wisconsin allow this? When did the legislature pass this, and why in the world would they do this? It just seems to me
that's a great question for a Wisconsin attorney.
Yeah,
which
I know you're not from Wisconsin. That's an unfair question. I just think it's come down to 10,000 ballots in Wisconsin. Is that correct? What's the difference?
About 20,000. So it's certainly not an insurmountable number.
So if you have 260,000 of these indefinitely confined ballots, it's reasonable to assume that 20,000 of them could be fraudulent.
I mean, statistically speaking, there's no other way to explain that kind of jump. even in the COVID era.
Yeah, it is really unbelievable. In 2004, when I was living in Wisconsin, I had moved there and lived there, and I needed to vote, and I voted there, and I just wanted to see if I could vote without an ID. And so I tried to do it, and it was really unbelievable that they did let me vote without an ID. They required a witness, someone to say, yes, that's who, he is who he says he is. But it was just striking to me as an American citizen in a constitutional republic. You would think we would treat voting with the same respect as we treat borrowing a book from the library.
At the very least, there's a lot of evidence of additional types of negligence. So what you're talking about in terms of, the sanctity of the vote, if somebody forgets to complete the absentee ballot application, for example, doesn't have a witness signature, or the witness address isn't there, the witness phone number isn't there, the date is wrong. Okay, what we're seeing is that the Board of Canvassers here is allowing those ballots to be counted. And so you've got, certain technical requirements, right? And the voter has to comply with those. Well, we're pulling all kinds of ballot applications or ballot envelopes that are missing information. That's one category. A different category is where the clerk has corrected or cured the missing information or the incorrect information rather than the voter. Okay? The state where I'm from, we don't do that. If there's a problem, we call the voter and they must correct it. Right? You don't want clerks completing information so that a ballot is acceptable. That's the role of the voter. The onus is on the voter to get it right. So that, there's all kinds of anomalies like that. And the Board of Commissioners, the commissioners here on the Board of Canvassing, sadly, it's a 2-to-1 Democrat majority. So when we get into these objections over and over and over again, they're not accepted.
So they're not accepting they're just outright not accepting your objections to ballots that have concerns.
Yeah, those ballots are counted. They've already ruled against us over and over and over again. Those ballots are now counted, and we've gotten to the point where they're not even allowing us to make certain objections because, frankly, they're tired of us making the same objections. But we are preserving the record and asking that those ballot applications and ballot envelopes be set aside as exhibits for hopefully an appellate case.
I mean, that just seems to me unbelievable that how can you just say you're not allowed to object to any ballots anymore?
It's not just about the ballots. It's about the way our people are being treated, about the way we're not able to view the information recorded on the ballot envelopes, which is why we're here.
So that's why I wanted to talk to you. You shared with me yesterday that they're keeping you so far away that you actually can't see the ballots you're supposed to be observing.
Well, imagine, if you will, taken from another show, a table. There's plexiglass on it. Okay, so the poll workers are on one side behind the plexiglass. And then there is a yellow line on the floor 6 feet away from the table. The observer's chair must be behind the yellow line. The observer must sit. If the observer wants to stand, he has to stand behind the chair. Can't even stand in front of the chair, which is the same thing as sitting in the chair. So, we're relegated to at least 6 feet, if not more, when we're asked to move our chairs back. And it's impossible to read the things that are on the papers that the poll workers are handling. The poll workers know what they're looking for, and so they're handling the papers rather quickly. And we do ask them to slow down. Most of them are very cooperative. Some of them are not. But we can't possibly actually read things that are written on there. So, we're looking for certain things on those papers, and it's nearly impossible to do. So now we've taken to try to use, some kind of Zoom app or not Zoom, but Zooming like on a phone or a magnifying glass type application on your phone so that our people can try to see what these people are quickly going through.
And is the 6 feet a COVID protection? Is that what they're saying?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So they're saying it's COVID. Now, can I tell you, I shouldn't say this on the show, but they're not listening. I don't like the idea that people are using their phones to zoom in on ballots because they can be taking pictures of ballots.
And that we cannot do. That's true. We cannot do that.
But that seems to me awful hard to police when you have a bunch of people having to use a Zoom app. I'm glad you guys are doing it. I'm glad you guys are trying to find ways to see the ballots. But it really does seem to me strange that they're making you stand 6 feet away, but they have no problem with you using your phones to try to zoom in. That just seems stupid.
Well, and the poll workers are sitting shoulder to shoulder, right? Because they have to work in tandem going through these piles and piles and piles of ballot envelopes. But we, God forbid, can't be quite that close.
So the poll workers
we're on the other side.
There's like dozens of poll workers shoulder to shoulder.
Dozens, try hundreds.
Hundreds of poll workers shoulder to shoulder. But the Republicans trying to observe the ballots must stand 6 feet away because they're really worried about COVID. That's what their concern is.
So yesterday we had a situation where one of our observers was seated and her knees went across the plane of the yellow line and all heck broke loose. So we had to move her back because her knees, not her face. I mean, I don't know about you, but I haven't heard that you can spread COVID from your knees. I don't know how that works. But her knees were across the yellow line, and they were not having any of it.
Yeah, they're bullies. They're really just bullies. Now, do you think, I mean, obviously most of the people you're there observing are just good folks trying to do a job, right?
It is incredible, the people who are here from all over the country.
Okay.
A lot of Wisconsinites, of course, and they're very, very grateful at all of us who've come from places other than Wisconsin. All of these observers versus, there are two groups here, the attorneys and the observers. The observers all pay their own way to come here. This morning I met a little lady who grew up in the Soviet Union in Moscow. She drove from Massachusetts to come help here in Wisconsin. Other people from New Hampshire, other people from all over the country, paying their own way, mind you,
to
come and help.
Here's this woman from Moscow who never imagined in a million years that we would see this kind of corruption in the United States. And you yourself, not to give anything away Thursday, but you grew up in a place that was violent and corrupt. And so can you tell us a little bit about what is it for you, how you grew up, seeing this happen in the United States?
Well, I think it's a pretty similar story for a lot of immigrants who come from places where tyranny is the rule of the day and who come from places where elections are stolen blatantly, where there is voter fraud left and right. They don't even try to hide it, where the society is ruled by a military dictatorship. And so people like that, people who come from, current day Venezuela or Cuban Americans today, people who come from the Soviet bloc, we get it. We have a particular appreciation for what this country offers, a particular appreciation and gratitude for the freedoms that were guaranteed, right? Guaranteed by the Constitution, given to us by God, but guaranteed by the Constitution. And so it is unbelievable to people like me and many, many, many others, even others around the world, that this could possibly be happening here.
Yeah, and I think for those of us who are kind of startled, and this has a sort of apocalyptic feeling to it, I think it's important to remind ourselves that this is normal. What we're experiencing is really normal and everywhere else in the world. What makes this exceptional is that it's happening in the United States. That would happen in any of sort of the, forgive me for saying it, but the Anglo-American community. You just don't expect this in England, the UK, Canada, the United States, New Zealand, and Australia. But I'm hearing that New Zealand has had very corrupt elections recently, that this is spreading across the Anglosphere. And what I was just reading a book yesterday from the late 19th century, written by a Japanese gentleman who was a samurai, went through the Meiji Restoration, and really fell in love with common law, the English Bill of Rights, the U.S. Constitution, Declaration of Independence. And he was talking about what a treasure it was and how unique it was. And I was thinking, here was this Japanese man born into a feudal society, had to cut that top knot, and watched all of his special privileges washed away. But then when he discovered sort of our political heritage, he was just in awe of it, and how unique and how special it is. And here we are we like that man, watching what has been the special privilege of the common person. You know, the everyday, all of us have the same architecture of legal protections as the wealthiest and most powerful people and interests. It seems like that's all being washed away. Are we going to recover from this? I mean, to me, it doesn't look good. I think Biden is going to, is our next president. And I don't think that the neoliberal elite, the media, our intelligence agencies, I don't think we're going to pull this out. What do you think?
Well, this is certainly an alarming wake-up call. If things like this weren't happening right now, and we had some outlets that were willing to show what's going on the ground, people would be completely oblivious and wouldn't believe what's going on the ground. So if you're in a state where the election went smoothly, as far as I can't imagine how they even believe that this is going on, say, in Wisconsin, in Georgia, and Michigan. Right? So unless we make sure that people know, then it's just going to continue to spread. But it also starts at the local level, and by that I mean the state level, because if we don't fix the process, then it's just going to perpetuate. I don't know if we're too far gone. I mean, I almost feel like we got caught flat-footed. I hate to say that. I would like to think that President Trump was prepared, but maybe he wasn't prepared for this widespread of a problem. And that's probably fair to say. How do you prepare for this widespread of a voter fraud problem?
Yeah, and who do you prepare with? I think a lot of the narratives I'm hearing coming from some places on the right strike me as wishful thinking and almost fantasy land. And what's going to happen to their morale when I got in an argument with a close friend. I said, listen, there's no cavalry coming over the hill. You need to prepare for a Biden presidency. And I am preparing, in the ways that my organization must prepare, and that the three big battles for the next year are, our missions to defend the vulnerable. So it's food insecurity like we've never seen. It's going to be the neoliberal and neocon establishment will be back in the saddle, and they will be looking for war in Syria and Iran. We need to make sure we stop that. And then, I've been saying this. I've been saying this the whole election. If Biden is elected, the Uyghur concentration camps will become death camps. I've been saying that for months. And people accuse me of hyperbole. And I wish that it was hyperbole. Just like I said when we pulled out of Iraq, there would be genocides. And you knew me then. And I wished I was wrong. And it was hyperbole. Right. And I was not wrong. In fact, I felt guilty in 2008 when I was traveling the country. I was traveling the country, campaigning, and I was trying to get people to understand that if Obama was elected president, that we would see a withdrawal from Iraq, a war which I did not support, but a withdrawal from Iraq, which I would, of course, not support. You break it, you buy it. There would be genocide. And I would give these really convincing speeches mapping out how an Obama presidency would lead to genocide of Christians and Yazidis in Iraq. I would go to my hotel and I would feel ashamed of myself. I would say to myself, I don't really know that's going to happen. How could I be sure that's going to happen? And I'm like, well, I really think it's going to happen. Well, just because you think it's going to happen, does it give you the right to say it? I mean, that's quite the calumny, saying Obama's going to lead to a genocide. And, I've been feeling the same way about saying if Biden's president, we're going to see concentration camps go to death camps. Like you, I know you know a lot about the migration of gulags from concentration camps to death camps and the way that Hitler's concentration camps became death camps. It didn't happen in one leap. Well, it's being reported this week already. China is literally building crematoriums as we speak at the Uyghur concentration camps in East Turkestan. So I want to be, I am having to focus on this. So I've been telling my friends there's no cavalry. I hope the cavalry comes. I hope Sidney Powell's right. I hope that this overwhelming evidence shocks the world. But I have a feeling that the mainstream media and Twitter, Facebook, Google are not going to allow this information to be communicated. Look, the Hunter Biden videos. Yeah. How many people have you talked to that don't even know about the Hunter Biden videos at all?
Right. They don't know what you're talking about.
I was at an event of Texas elected officials. Half of them, this was a week after the Hunter Biden videos leaked. Half of them didn't know what I was talking about.
Well, you need to prepare for either scenario, right? We're not Boy Scouts, but we need to be prepared. And so I hope that Sidney Powell is right. She's made some outlandish claims, and I can't believe that somebody like her would put her legal reputation on the line if she didn't have solid evidence. But how long is that going to take? Now, she said yesterday she hopes to start filing suits at the end of next week. That's great. But we've got some deadlines coming up, and I don't think there's any precedent for what happens if the Electoral College doesn't certify by that December 10th deadline. I don't know what happens. We do have two precedents for where the presidency has gone to the House, and so we can deal with that. That's in the Constitution. But what happens if a case takes 5 months, 6 months to resolve? And in the end, the numbers are such, the evidence is such that Trump won. I don't know what happens then. I mean, this is new territory. So we better be prepared for all eventualities, whether it is a Biden presidency or a Harris presidency, and whether that's going to be a 5-month affair, a 2-year affair, who knows?
And can you imagine a Harris? I mean, she is literally, to quote Michael Savage, the definition of a red diaper doper baby.
Maybe. You better believe people when they tell you who they are. She told us who
she was raised by a Bolshevik. She's a Bolshevik. I mean, it's what it is.
If we don't believe her, it's our fault.
That's what's scaring me. People like Bill Gates and others, they have been telling us for 40 years that they want to reduce the world population down to 400 million.
Yep.
Now they're telling us they want a great reset, basically to wash away those ancient liberties that we are the only people in the world protected. There's a book, I don't know if you read it, called Tragedy and Hope by Carol Quigley, written in the 60s. He was Bill Clinton's mentor. He said the only thing in the way of a new world order is the Muslim countries and the American middle class, and that they both have to be destroyed before we can usher in this sort of world homogenized state. And it seems like we've been doing a good job of Africanizing or homogenizing, shattering order and local control in the Middle East for 2 decades more. And now it looks like our ancient rights and liberties are being washed away. But I am hopeful. I mean, I guess the battle now moves to the state. Let's say worst case scenario. If Sidney Powell is right, there's nothing I can do or need to do, right? I mean, what do we need to do if she's right? What can I as a layman? I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a judge. There's nothing we can really do except share the information, right?
If she's right, we need to make sure people know that she's right. We need to share her information. We need to keep people posted on what's going on in the different legal, battles ahead. We need to pray for her and her team. And we need to stay on top of it. The media has, of course, for 2 weeks now been acting as if Biden is certainly the president-elect with this stupid little office title he's given himself. And so we need to be vigilant about not falling into that sort of lazy cycle. Oh, well, when Biden comes in, he's going to do this or that. No, it's certainly not over. It may be, but we still have some cards to play, and we better play them.
Yeah, and even if he walks into the White House as and is the next president of the United States, it is not over. I get so frustrated, and this is why I'm a little concerned about people who are like, Sidney Powell's done it, it's done. I don't know if you get these messages from people. Stop your worrying. Some guy messaged me. He's like, I didn't take you for one as a quitter because I posted people need to prepare for a Biden presidency. He goes, I didn't, he messaged me, I didn't take you for a quitter. I'm like, and at the time I was literally in Washington, D.C. working. And I said, look, I'm not a quitter. You're a daydreamer, and I know you'll never stop daydreaming. You'll never quit that. I'm actually working to make sure we have an honest and fair election. But at the same time, we have to think several moves ahead. And it's not the end of the world if Biden is president. It's really bad. I mean, we're going to look at a famine really like we have never seen. And we need to slow that. If we have a war in Syria, we're looking at 800,000 dead and displaced Christians, right?
And I'll tell you what, our side is rarely several moves ahead. We seem to always be playing defense, which has always been very frustrating to me. The Democrats are very, very good about planning ahead, decades ahead. They're better chess players than we are. We'd better learn. We'd better learn the game.
Well, because politics is our livelihood. Our livelihood is our livelihood, right? So, well, the conservative is coaching Little League and building a business and spending time with his family. These nut jobs are all in on politics is their religion. It's their everything, right? It's why I don't take defeat hard. When we lose, it's just, to me, it's a set of downs. Okay, what's next? What do we do from here? It's like wrestling, okay? I'm pinned on the side. I'm pinned on my right shoulder. Now, where am I going to go from here? I got to, and it's just we have to assess. So I have been racking my brain on what am I going to do? I already know we had some big plans for vulnerable ethnic and religious communities in a second term for President Trump. And on this very show, Steve Bannon said last week that it was a lot of our work that led to the administration front shelving the interests of minorities. I don't know if you caught that. And on his show.
From your podcast, yeah.
And then on the War Room, he talked about it was our work that really made the administration aware of what was happening in Chinese-occupied East Turkestan. Of course, the administration wouldn't call it Chinese-occupied East Turkestan, but we were able, so we have a lot of plans to go forward. But now we're racking our brains on, really how do we order this little boat of our organization, the Vulnerable People Project, to educate people on the cost to the poorest people in the world to a 12-month shutdown, which Biden said he wants to do, which is just reckless.
Wow.
Not just talking Americans. I mean, it's devastating to our country. And I don't think we're going to have famine, I pray God, in the United States. But we'll see famine like we have never seen before, at least since the depths of World War II. And so that's where we are. I guess politically, the battle now, win or lose, is in the state legislatures, right?
Well, that's the future battle. Okay, so the one perhaps silver lining that we will see is that because Trump is willing to engage in this battle and spend millions and millions and millions of dollars for these recounts and hire Sidney Powell and her team and go through the hassle of going through all the cases, even the ones he's currently losing. Okay. Number one, it brings awareness, sure. But number two, it shows people that the integrity of the election is paramount. And if people are aware of that, then perhaps they can then address it at the state level so that the state legislatures get it right. There's a lot of correcting to be done at the state legislature in terms of election process and election law. So that has to happen, regardless of the outcome of the Trump-Biden issue. I don't know. I mean, beyond that, any other silver linings as far as this is, I guess, just helping us appreciate how free we were to vote our leaders, because that's the only power the person has. That's the only power your citizens have, is the power to vote their elected representatives. They don't have that. They have nothing.
No. And, we brought this upon ourselves because the biggest skeptic listening Thursday, almost said your name, the biggest skeptic listening, if I were to ask them to look me in the eye and say, do you deny that for decades there has been total systematic voter fraud in Philadelphia, Chicago, New York, Detroit, Atlanta? Do you think, well, what is the biggest skeptic going to say? They're going to smile and they're going to shrug and they go, well, yeah, I mean, we know it's been happening there. This is what we get, FBI. This is what you gave us at RNC for allowing this, for saying, well, Chicago's not ours anyways. Philly's not ours anyways. Milwaukee's not ours anyways. Do you know, in 2004, I filmed voter fraud. Did I ever tell you about this?
I don't think so.
I filmed voter fraud. And I told my superiors at the RNC, and they said, destroy it. You committed a crime. It's voter intimidation. You're not allowed to have cameras at polling places. I'm like, I filmed a bus with Illinois license plates, people pouring out and voting in 3 different polling places. And then at the third stop with the young Republicans I called, we formed a barricade and we blocked them from coming in. And, they got back in the bus and left. And there was another guy that, I kid you not, it's too stereotypical, was in following the bus in a Camaro. I'm just going to leave it at that. I don't want to be accused of anything. I'll tell you offline. That's all I need to tell you. Illinois buses, guy with Illinois plates on a Camaro, and he gets out and gets in my face, and then he realized I was the wrong guy to get in his face because I was like, let's go, bro. And he's like, you're not from Wisconsin, are you? I said, no, I'm actually from where you all are. I'm from Chicago. So I gave the film to Court TV, and they did a little special on it. The RNC was absolutely uninterested in documented voter fraud in Wisconsin in 2004.
I'm not surprised.
And they said,
nobody should be surprised. And they better not be surprised when they start hearing about stories coming from very, very red states. So supposedly Texas is a very, very red state. Not so much anymore. You know that's happening in Texas too? In Houston and Austin and Dallas, in the big cities? Of course it is.
It breaks my heart more than anything to think regular old folks would participate in voter fraud. Because I'm a Republican. I've been involved in political campaigns since the first election after I got out of the Army as a young man. And if I ever saw voter fraud, I'm reporting it. If I ever saw voter fraud on behalf of my candidate, I am reporting it. And I don't think...
Can you imagine a typical, maybe older voter see something like that? Do you think they're not going to be intimidated? Do you think they're not going to be a little terrified, especially by, after what we've seen this year and this summer? If they wanted to say something, would they have the courage to say something? I'm not convinced anymore. I mean, it's gotten to, it's not benign anymore. So now there's violence associated with, any whistleblower, doxing. Look at what happened to the Republicans on the Detroit or Wayne County Election Commission. They retracted their vote the other night because somebody on a Zoom call called out the names of where the kids went to school. I mean, that is violent intimidation. It's not even just a sideways nasty look. It's serious. And I think plenty of people would be just content enough to say, well, maybe somebody else will catch it. I don't want.
I blame our side. I blame our side because here's the deal. I'm never going to threaten violence but if you threaten my children, you name my family or my address on a Zoom call,
it is over.
To quote Malcolm X, brother, you will never put another family's name out on a Zoom call again. I mean, What is wrong with us that we have no honor or sense of propriety, that we allow them to threaten us? We allow them to blackmail us. If you're being blackmailed, go on a Zoom call, confess whatever they're trying to blackmail you for, and then spill the beans. We need whistleblowers like you. You know, I know the whistleblowers in Minnesota now, the 5 of them are in protective custody. So that's
crazy.
So that tells you something, that if there's no fraud, just yahoos at the post office making stuff up, you don't have to put people in protective custody. You don't need to get, higher security.
So, for example, during the first day here, a few people from our side went to lunch here at a downtown place and had their tags on, so people knew, what they were here for and what they were doing here at the recount center. And there were a couple people who walked by their table and said, "You guys better watch your back tonight when you leave the recount center." It's out there.
At Thursday, am I allowed to say this? We should scrap. At the moment somebody says that, there should be a fight.
It's go time.
Yeah, no. As soon as someone says to you, you should watch your back, you need to be, it's on. You said it's go time. It's go time. Look, you don't threaten me.
Time.
Do not raise your voice at me. Do not threaten me. No. I don't understand how we take this stuff. It's just unbelievable to me. Because I know these are like soy boy. These people are not scary people making these threats.
Oh, these are snowflakes.
Yeah, they're snowflakes. Like, who are you threatening? Why are you? Because our people are so kind and so decent, they get away with this nonsense relentlessly.
That's right.
Relentlessly.
That's right.
But there needs to come a point where, and I think threatening violence or exposing someone's home address is unbelievable to me. If I saw a Republican give out a Planned Parenthood employee's home address, I'm coming out against that person. And I don't think I always judge this. I've had 31 years of relentless daily activity to try to end abortion. So I have never met anyone in my life that has for 31 years relentlessly worked to stop global warming or to save the whales or anything ever. So I think on the passion level, I'm at the top. I'm king of passion on anything political, maybe tied with Malcolm X and George Washington. Who else? Maybe that's it. Okay, the 3 of us. We're at the top. And I am never going to threaten violence. I'm never going to intimidate. I am never going to give out someone's family information. Heartbreaking. I remember in the late 90s, I led a campaign against a lawyer who was being elevated to the Supreme Court in Hawaii because I had debated him on Olelo. How is this, Thursday? I'm a college student. They picked me to debate a lawyer who was on his way to the Supreme Court on assisted suicide.
No pressure. No pressure.
Yeah, and I didn't actually, because I was like, you know what, I'm not going to debate this guy in the law. And you know how they schedule it, they set it up. They're like, you're only allowed to debate the law. And I'm like, not the morality of it or anything. I'm like, okay, it was live. So I'm like, I'm just going to break that rule right off the bat. And I'll drag it. I'm going to drag it to where I feel comfortable. And I talked about loneliness and pain and alienation, and I kept giving out suicide hotline numbers the whole debate. But because I knew of his commitment to assisted suicide, led these protests against him going to the Supreme Court. I shouldn't say this on the air, but when he came to the legislature for this event, and we were there, I'd never thought it through. So there was his wife and his daughter, I believe. And I just saw the look on his daughter's face, and we had these signs, and like I had to go to the bathroom. I went to the bathroom and cried. I hated that his daughter had to see that.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't a bad man. He was a confused man. And I hated that. I can't imagine if someone gave that guy's home address out, that little girl's. Unbelievable. But the left does this, and they think they're justified. They think it's great.
Well, you've got a lot of, what I call mini men, or, it's not just men, but people with small minds and grand ideas running around here, for example, drunk with power because they've been given a little name tag by the election commission, and they're absolutely abusing people, just harassing them, but they're the only ones that can kick you out. So, for example, yesterday I was talking to one of my fellow attorneys on the floor. We were trying to advise one of our observers on what to do on an objection. He comes over, and he is a small man. He comes over. Why are there two of you? You need to distance yourselves. Only one of you needs to help the observer. You don't need two of you. So this goes on. So I start filming him. The moment you turn the camera on, he wants to walk away. But he ends with, I got your number. And then he walks away. So these people, it's not courage. There is no courage.
No.
It's just bravado. Because they've got a little tag, they've got a little title, they got a little power. So they're going to use it to harass you. There's no substance behind it, but they know what buttons to push. And they're looking for those sites. They're looking to aggravate you so that they can call the sheriff to come over and haul you out. So there was a story on Fox News about the one person who got kicked out yesterday here, and it was total bunk. That little dweeb, the one I'm talking about now, is the one who got hers thrown out because he came over, threw down her chair that contained her purse and her coat, and she went apoplectic, rightfully so. So he got her. He called 3 sheriff's deputies, and they took her away.
Unbelievable.
So, they know what they're doing.
Yeah, but they're small, petty. So in my office, I have my 2 favorite movies, posters. One is Ridicule. Have you ever seen Ridicule?
No.
You have to. It's a French film from 1996. I think it was Best Foreign Film, 96. And then the poster, it says, wit is the ultimate weapon. So the good news is these are dimwits. So you should just have fun with these people. A, because they take themselves so serious. Because they take the spirit of the age serious. They take the power they have associated themselves with so serious that now that they are instruments of that power, they want you to take them serious. So what I love about the movie Ridicule is it just shows how, as it says in the poster, wit is the ultimate weapon. And then my other favorite film, which is actually a play, which you better have at least read, called Cyrano de Bergerac.
I have read the play and seen the movie.
Have you seen the French version with Gerard Depardieu?
Yes, that's the only version I've seen.
Don't ever see an English version, and definitely don't watch Roxanne, the Steve Martin version, because the Anglos, we destroy anything French that we try to make our own. And but of course, Cyrano was spiritedness and wit, and we are more spirited than them. We are more alive than them. I pity them. They're really pitiful, right? Help me have charity for those people, because I know they are pitiful. And they live sorrowful, small lives. I just picture a house that smells strange with a lot of cats. That's what I imagine.
It's really hard to have pity on these people when you're in the war zone.
Right, but as Christians, do you ever just stare at them and go, wow, this little guy right here going around henpecking everyone was made in the image of God, that God had this guy in his mind.
Had in the mind.
For all eternity. And he loves him as much as me. God, how could that possibly be?
There's humor. There's humor right there.
Right? But it's true, though. It is true. I just don't know what makes these creatures. I don't know how these creatures are made.
I don't know, but they exist and they're everywhere. And this morning, I had a little fun with one of them.
Let's end on a fun story.
So I went to talk to one of my observers who was having some trouble with reading the information, of course, across the 8-foot expanse. And one of the Democrat observers, or head honchos, came over and stood, I'd say, within 4 feet. So I said, hey, 6 feet, you got to move. Well, he didn't move, so I moved my guy away so we could keep talking. The dweeb moves with us. So I move again with my guy. the dweeb follows us. So it just so happens that the observer I was talking to is from another country whose language I speak. So we just switched to another language, and then we moved close to him. Just went out right to him and just kept having our conversations in another language. He had no clue what we were talking about.
Or now were you talking about him?
We were talking about him in unkind terms, and we were talking business as well.
Tell us what you were saying about him. Come on, tell us. You called him a stupid.
Yeah, they were ugly words.
Stupid wedo. Did you call him a dumb wedo?
I called him things that should not be aired on TV, radio, or podcast.
We don't speak Spanish. No one speaks Spanish that listens to the Jason Jones Show. They'll never know.
Who says it was Spanish?
Oh. Ooh, I know what language you were speaking, but that would totally give you away. Thursday.
So anyway, we clearly frustrated him, and there was nothing left for him to do.
Well, by the way, the language that I know you were speaking had to really freak him out. I love that you were speaking that language. Am I right? Am I right?
You're right.
Oh, that is awesome. I think that is beautiful. You know, that guy right now is telling his friends, I don't know. All of a sudden they started speaking. Too bad, like, all of the observers didn't speak that language.
That's too bad.
That would have been beautiful.
You know, you gotta find some fun where you can, and if that irked him for the rest of the day, then I'm happy.
Well, and I think that's what we have to learn, that we have to learn to like the battle. So you and I have been battling since we were students. And a lot of folks, the people that and my big worry is people who believe that General Flynn and Sidney Powell, they're on the case and it's done. Don't even worry about it. Like, if I don't need to worry about it, I don't need to worry about it. But I think 5 moves ahead.
We need to worry about it.
And I take my job very serious. So I have a very specific job, different than other people's. I run an apostolate. Its job is to advance the dignity of the vulnerable and the interests of the vulnerable, from the child in the womb to the child in Darfur. And so then I have to ask myself, what are the biggest challenges coming up in the next 12 months if it's a Biden administration? They're very, very serious concerns. And
they're serious and they're fluid, and we're going to have to be flexible about how we address them.
Yeah, well, I don't know if I told you what we got going on with the Uyghur, but it's big, and I can't wait. It's we're going to really, if Biden is president, we're going to put a lot of pressure on him to pressure China, and we're also going to put pressure on the Catholic Church to pressure China. And so, that's how we work. We want to push the big dominoes so they fall and advance.
Right.
We need these camps closed.
Pressure points.
Yeah, we need these camps closed. We need the Uyghurs freed. And I know, look, if Trump were reelected, those camps would have been dismantled. And I was in D.C. last week meeting with Uyghur leaders. I think you were there. You met with some of them as well. And they were distraught. I mean,
distraught and grateful. I mean, grateful because there's finally been some attention, but certainly distraught because if what the future holds under a Biden administration could be very bleak for them.
I mean, did the folks that we met with, you could feel the fear?
Absolutely.
And the one gentleman we met with, I had never seen him so fearful, and it really broke my heart. And that's what made me just say we have to double down on this and be creative. And I'll tell you offline some of the big projects that we have going forward. But so I guess the moral of the story is, thank God for lawyers like you. Lawyers, you're not all bad.
Not all of us. A fair amount of us are decent. And by the way, the lawyers that are here are also volunteers from all over the country. It's really quite amazing.
So are the election observers, so that you can be there, you don't have to be a lawyer? Is there still a need for volunteers?
No, we've got, frankly, I call it God's army. It's really Trump's army. But we've got lots and lots of people here. In fact, I'm not sure what happened to the Democrats on day one because they had no one here. I think somebody must have told them, hey, you need to get down here, because on day 2, they arrived in full force. So they are certainly here now. But no, I think we're okay. Hopefully, we don't have to go through December 1st, which is the deadline by which this has to be finished. We're working through even Thanksgiving.
So you will not be with your family for Thanksgiving?
I will be going back. Some of our members are saying there's some people came for the first part, some are here for the duration, some are coming at the end. I think we've got it covered. So,
well, I want to give us some marching orders, because people are like, "What should I do? What should
pray.
we do?" Okay,
number
we need to
one,
pray.
Number one, pray, because I will tell you, yesterday morning there was a palpable sense of dread and frankly evil, because the Democrats had arrived and they were raring to go, pushing our buttons at every turn. It was very, very high tension, lot of disruption, lot of nastiness. Today is a little bit calmer, but prayer certainly, I would say, are number one. And number two, just share the news, share the information, and try to make sure people understand it's certainly not over, and that they need to be patient, because sadly, as everybody knows, legal matters take a long time to resolve. So if there's a plan, if Sidney Powell has a plan, if the Trump administration has a plan, you may not get the full picture right away, but there's something there and it's unfolding, and we need to learn a little patience.
So as a lawyer, you're saying that there could be a path to victory for Trump still?
There could be, but the timing is certainly what worries me, because, again, I don't know what happens after December 10th.
Right.
So if the cases turn out in our favor, but that doesn't happen until February or beyond, I don't know how that works, and I don't know that anybody does. If it lands in the Supreme Court, then maybe they set a new precedent.
Could you imagine? Can you imagine if you have to march Biden and Kamala out of the White House after being there for 60 days, 90 days?
You have to serve them with eviction papers, and that's what you have to do.
Well, it strikes me as daydreaming, but I pray that it's true. I pray they don't even get in the White House. And if they get in that White House and it goes to the Supreme Court, I pray they march out. I don't think they will.
Not without a fight, and it will be ugly. I mean, it'll be ugly everywhere. Certainly in the streets of this country, it'll be ugly. But I don't know. With God, all things are possible, right?
Amen. And we just have to be the light in the darkness, and the darkness, is come upon this nation. I think it's the darkest time in the history of our nation right now. But if I were to take a time machine anywhere in the history of this country, it'd be to right now, and I'd be where you are. I would like to be there as an observer. So thank you very much for, doesn't feel like you're landing on Normandy. Doesn't, feel like the Battle of the Bulge or Gettysburg. But it, I believe, is one of the most important battles in the history of our nation. And let's pray that there is a peaceful transfer of power and that the integrity of our elections is upheld.
It's restored. Yep. I appreciate it. I appreciate what you do.
All right. Thanks, Thursday. That was our secret agent Thursday in the field in Wisconsin, reporting on what she has been observing. And I just want to close on this, that you probably, like me, are tired of this election. And this fatigue is causing a lot of folks to tap out. And we want to move on to something else, sort of like Richard Nixon's, they stole the election fair and square, let's move on. But we cannot move on. We have to fight to the end, because we have to acknowledge that there is so much at stake, not just for us, but for our posterity. Not just for here, not just for here, but for around the world. And here is my promise. If Joe Biden is president, our foreign policy will be disastrous. It will be an epic tragedy. That the shutdowns and slowdowns of our economy will lead to hunger from Bangladesh to South Africa, and that we will see the chicken hawks. The chicken hawks are already slithering into position, eager for more regime change wars. There will be more regime change wars. That's my promise. But we are going to be here to try to check them, and we may just check them every step of the way. And this episode has been brought to you by the Vulnerable People Project, standing in solidarity with the vulnerable. And we know we're going to have our work cut out for us this year. And the next 12 months, our main projects are going to be getting those concentration camps closed in Chinese-occupied East Turkestan, not letting them become death camps. Reports of crematoriums being built already. So get those camps opened, the folks freed, and then those camps closed, demolished. 2, food security. We're going to be fighting for food security around the world. And what does that mean? Keep the global economy open. 3, stop the neoliberal neocon war machine from starting any more foolish regime change wars. We've seen the catastrophe in Libya. We've seen the catastrophe in Iraq. So we have to stop these foolish regime change wars, and then to continue, as we do relentlessly, promote the incomparable beauty of the human person, from the child in the womb to the child on Mount Sinjar. So go to thegreatcampaign.org and become a monthly donor. Right there, you can donate. We need your support because we are going to have our work cut out for us. So until next time, this has been Jason Jones Show.
This has been the Jason Jones Show, powered by Mudhouse Media.